Hey, hello and welcome to today's GFG problem of the day. Hope you're doing well. So first of all, a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year in advance. Okay, so let's quickly see the today's problem. Okay, so what the problem is saying is we'll be given a 2D matrix of size n into m. So what we want to do is we want to modify the matrix such that if mat of I, j is 0, all the elements in the ith row and jth column are set to 0 and do it in constant space complexity. That means we don't have to use any extra space. Okay. So for example, what the problem is saying is, for example, if you find let's say instead of this 4 it was 0 over here, right? Instead of this 4 there was 0. So what you want to do, your task is to modify. For example, if you encounter 0 at any cell, right? Your task is to modify all the elements in that particular row and that particular column as 0. For example, now you encounter 0 here, so you want to modify this row to have zeros, to set zeros. Okay, and this column as well. For example, this column, right? This particular column, right? You have to set all, you have to set that particular row and that particular column as 0. So this is the ask. Okay, this is the ask. Okay, now for example, now in this case, what, how it will look like? For example, the end output, right? The end output for now 0 is here, right? So we're going to have 0. You are going to have 0 here as well. So the row is done. Now you want to do the same for column as well. So here we are doing for column, right? And here also originally it was 0 here, so you want to have 0 here as well. Okay, so this is it. This will be the final output: 0 0 0 0, then 0 4 5 0, and then 0 3 1 and 0. So this will be the final, this will be the final output. Okay, okay. Now how can we solve this problem? So what we'll do is, I'll just directly come to the approach, right? Which we won't see the naive approach today. We'll directly look into what is the expected approach. Okay. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we are going to have two variables. Let's say first row, which will be a Boolean variable. Okay, Boolean. So this will be false. Similarly, first call, okay, which will be false. Now what we're going to do is, we are going to iterate through the first row first. Okay, we are going to iterate through the first row. Okay, and we're going to check if there is any element, any cell having 0 value, then this will mark this first row as true. For example, here, so first row we are going to iterate all the elements, right? All the elements. So in the first element itself we found 0, so we're going to set this as true. Okay, we are going to set this as true. Similarly, we are going to check for the first column as well. First column. So wherever we encounter 0, okay, so we are going to, in the first column, if we encounter 0 at any cell, then we are going to set first call as true. So here also the first element itself is 0, so we are going to mark it as true. So along with this, let's code. So I think you'll understand better. So before going to the code, I just request you, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's quickly see. So first I'll show the Java code followed by C++. So first we'll take n, that is the row size, and m, which will be the column size. Okay. Okay. Then we are going to have two variables as discussed: Boolean first row 0 equal to false, right? Then Boolean second row 0, sorry, my bad, first call 0 equal to false. Now what we're going to do, we want to check whether there is any element which is 0 in the first row. For that, I'll have to iterate to the column j, and I'm going to check if mat of 0, that is a zeroth row and j column. If it is 0, that means first row, we can set first row 0 to be true. That means when at last, what we're going to do, if first row 0, if it is true, that means we want to set the first row, all the elements of the first row as 0. Now similarly we'll do for column as well. So int, we will iterate through the row, basically int n plus plus I, and what are we going to check? If mat of I and the first column, right? And the first column, if it is 0, then we have to mark first call 0. That means you have to mark the first column with with the zero value. Okay, with the all the elements in the first column with the zero value. Okay, so we're marking it as true. Now we are done here. Now second step is what we're going to do is we are going to, since we have covered this, right? Since we have covered the first row and first column, okay, first row and first column. Now what we are going to do is we are going to iterate from or start the iteration from the first row and that is the second row and second column. For example, if it is starting like this, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to start from second row and second column because first row and first column we have just covered right now, right? We've just covered. Okay. Now what we're going to do, so we are going to start the iteration from here, right? We're going to start the iteration from here like this. Okay. This much we are going to iterate. Now wherever we encounter, for example, let's say here it is, let's say here it is 0. Okay. Let's consider 0 only here. Okay. Now in this case, what we are going to do is we are going to mark, for example, if we encounter 0 here, so we're going to mark the start of this row, okay, as 0. The start of this row as 0 because just this is a marker, okay, this is a marker which is telling that this complete row needs to be 0 because the element here it is 0, right? This complete, so we're just going to mark, okay, the first element of this row as 0. Okay, so just be with me, you'll understand. Okay, so what we are going to do here is as discussed, so for int I equal to 1, I less than n plus plus I, for int j equal to 1, j less than m plus plus j. Okay, and what we're going to do here, if mat of I j, if it is equal to 0, then what we want to do is we want to mark the start of the row, right, as 0, sorry, and start of the column, sorry, not this one, it will be 0, right? No, this is right. This is right. Mark the start of that particular row as 0 and mark that particular column, right? 0. That particular column also 0. So again, so let me try to explain this. Okay. So what we're doing here is we had encountered, so we have 0 here, right? We have 0 here. So what we are doing is we are marking the start of this particular row, marking the start of this particular row with 0. Okay, and marking this particular the start of the column as well, right? The start of the column as well as 0, in order to, so that later we can iterate through these markers, and wherever we find 0 we are going to set zeros, right? Set zeros in all the elements, for all the elements of this row. Similarly for this column as well. So we are just marking the start of the row and column as 0. Okay, row and column as 0. So these are the markers. Okay, so that's what we have done here with this step. Now, what will be the second step is, now, what we're going to do is we are going to set int. Now we're going to iterate through the rows, right? We're going to iterate through the rows, and wherever we find 0, wherever we encounter 0, we're going to mark the rows as 0. Okay. So let's see how is this matrix looking right now. How is this matrix looking right now? It is looking like 0, right? Then since we have marked this column as 0, the start of the column as 0, right? Where this is a marker, 2 and 0. Second one is 0. Okay, this row we have, this is a marker basically, this one. This is a marker. Okay, and 1. Here we have 0, 5, 2, right? And 3, 1, 5. So this is the current state of the matrix, right? This is the current state of the matrix. Now what we're going to do is we'll again iterate from the first, from that is from the second row. Okay, from the second row and second column. Okay, so we are going to cover this matrix, this sub matrix, this first row and first column, first row. We're going to deal with that later on, but first we are dealing with this particular sub matrix. Okay, that is the, okay. Now with each we are going to check, we're going to iterate through each row from this second row, right? And we're going to check whether there is any marker, whether we have any whether there is any marker, right? At the start of each row, at the start of each row. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. So how we are going to do for int? So let's write the code. Int I equal to 1, I is less than n plus plus I. Okay. Now what we're going to check here is if mat of I of 0, right? So we are checking whether there is any marker at the start of each row from row number 1. Okay, since it is 0 based indexing from row number 1, if it is 0, then what we want to do is we want to mark all the elements. We have to mark all the elements of that particular row to 0, right? J less than m plus plus j, right? Plus plus j. So what we are doing here is, let me, so mat of I, that particular row. Okay. So we are marking all the elements of that particular to 0. We are setting all the elements of that particular row to 0. So what we are doing in this case is, so we started with this row. We are checking, oh, is there any 0? Is there any marker which is 0 at the start of this particular row? Yes, there is. So in this case, what we're going to do, we are going to mark this particular row, complete row with 0 element. So 0, 0, 0, right? 0, 0, 0. Okay. So that's what we have done here. So once it is done for all the rows, if there is, like, we are going to do this activity or operation for all the rows starting with 0, for all the rows having the marker. Okay. The second is, now we'll do for the column. Int j equal to 1, j less than m plus plus j, right? Now what we're going to check here is if mat of 0th row, right? And j, right? What we're doing with this is we are checking for all the columns, the start of all the columns, whether there is any 0 marker. So what we're doing, let's quickly come to the state now. So what it looks like, so it is 0, 0, 2, 0, right? And 0, 0, 0, 0, and 1, 3, 1, 5. Now, again, we are going to start with this submatrix, right? Submatrix. Now, what we're going to do here is, so whether there is any marker which is 0, okay, which is 0, okay, sorry, which is this is a start, right? This is a start, which is 0. So we're going to check that, and we are, yeah. So we're going to check that. Now how we're going to do that? So we are checking here, right? We're checking here whether there is any marker at the start of each column. So which is that column start? This is the start of this particular column, right? This is the start of this particular column. This is the start of this particular column. So that's what we are doing here. Okay. So now for this particular, since we are starting from right, from, for example, if it is 0 based indexing, 0, 1, 2 and 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're starting with the first row and first column, and we are checking the start of the column, whether we have 0 or not. Okay. So here we encounter 0. So that's what we are doing here is we have encountered 0. Now we are going to mark all the elements in that particular column. In that particular column, I is less than n plus plus I 2, 0, 2, 0. Okay. So mat of I j equal to 0. So you're getting me, right? So what we're doing here is, so we encountered this marker, this 0 at the start of this particular column. So what we are doing here is we are marking all the elements to 0. All the elements of this particular column to 0. So how it looks like? How it's looking like? So it's looking like this: 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 5. So this is the state of the current matrix. So this is done. Okay, now at last what we're going to do, now we are going to take care of the first row and first column. So what we're going to do, first row 0. If it is true, then we want to mark all the elements of the first row to 0, right? Mat of 0 of j equal to 0. Similarly, what we are going to do the same thing with the first column. If first call 0, if it is true, then we are going to, for int I equal to 0, I less than n plus plus I, we're going to mark all the elements of first column as 0. That's it. So this is it. Let's compile this. The time complexity, it is going to be O of n square, because Because of the obvious reasons, we are using two for loops here. Okay, that is O of n into m, we can say. N being the number of rows and m being the number of columns. Let's submit this. And space complexity, it is constant. We are not using any extra space. So the test cases are being passed. I hope you've got the solution. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's quickly see the C++ code. I mean, C++ code is almost same. Only difference here is size. That's it. We can see this code here quickly. So here is the size. Okay, here's the size. Okay. So that's it. I'll attach the code in the description section. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I wish you a very happy, healthy, wealthy, and a great day. And once again, Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.